Hello, I'm Mohsen Jamal and you watch Afghan News. The Haqqani network, one of the most feared insurgent groups in Afghanistan, would take part in peace talks with the Kabul government in the United States only if the Taliban did. Its leader Sirajuddin Haqqani said on Saturday. Sirajuddin said the group had rejected several peace gestures from the United States and President Hamid Karzai's government in the past because they were an attempt to create divisions between militant groups, and any further attempts to do so would fail. The Haqqani group no longer has sanctuaries in Pakistan and felt secure inside Afghanistan, he said by telephone from an undisclosed location. The Afghan government and its allies have not commented on the issue yet. U.S. officials are looking for evidence that directly links elements of Pakistan's powerful spy agency to this week's assault on the U.S. Embassy and coalition headquarters in Kabul. The Wall Street Journal reported Saturday suspicions are being partly fueled by growing concerns that deteriorating bilateral relations and the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan may be pushing elements of Pakistan's inter-services intelligence spy agency to more closely embrace the Haqqani network. Neither the ISI nor the Pakistani military immediately responded to the U.S. suspicions. Pakistani government officials dismissed these suspicions as insulting and unfair. Top U.S. officials, including Defense Secretary Leon Panetta, have already blamed the violence in Kabul on the Haqqani network, an Afghan insurgent faction whose history is intertwined with the ISI. Although officials say the Pakistani spy agency has aided Haqqani network attacks in Kabul in the past years, the U.S. has warned the Pakistanis of a stronger action if the group was not reined in. 9 civilians, including 5 children, have been killed by a roadside mine as they herded cattle in northwest Afghanistan, police said Saturday. The incident took place in Faryab province, which borders Turkmenistan, late Friday, and again highlights the dangers civilians face in the 10-year war in Afghanistan. Faryab police spokesman Saeed Masood Yaqubi confirmed details of the incident, adding that a man was wounded. Civilians are the biggest casualties of the war. The United Nations said in July that 1,462 civilians were killed by the Afghan conflict in the first half of this year, up 15% on the same period last year. Most Taliban insurgents taking up an amnesty offer are low-level fighters and relatively few are from violent hotspots, but nearly 2,500 have laid down their arms in a year, NATO says. Backed by $142 million of international funding, the Afghan government effort was expected to attract 1,000 fighters in 8 provinces by the end its first year, British Major General Philip Jones told a briefing on Friday. While the scheme has so far drawn 2,436 fighters in 20 provinces, NATO estimates there are about 10 times that number in the country. Jones, who hears NATO support for the mission, said that in a country that had been at war for more than 30 years, skepticism and doubt remained widespread in numbers joining war far smaller than average in places like the volatile province of Kandahar. 7 were confirmed dead and 4 remained trapped underground in a flooded coal mine in North China's Shaanxi province, local authorities said. The flooding occurred at about 14:37 at a local time at a coal mine in Shanyin County in the city of Zhuashu of Shaanxi province, and the rescue operation started at 16. There were altogether 21 workers at the site when the accident took place, and 10 of them were successfully evacuated. The accident occurred in a coal mine that is under consolidation and technical reform, according to Wang King Quan, general engineer of the Jinhaiyang Yuan Bawan coal company. Wang also said that it would take 6 hours to drain up all the water at current speed, and before 7 tomorrow morning, all the water can be drained from the coal mine. Libyan fighters loyal to the National Transitional Council are regrouping for another assault on Muammar Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte. Troops gathered 5 kilometers away from Sirte on Saturday and packed their pickup vehicles with weapons in advance of another day of fighting. On Friday, supporters of Gaddafi put up fierce resistance against offensives trying to storm 2 of the deposed Libyan leaders' last strongholds, Sirte and Bani Walid. Loyalists forced the NTC's fighters into retreat in the mountains and turned Sirte into an urban battlefield. Gaddafi's spokesman Musa Ibrahim, meanwhile, after the fighting on Friday, again warned that pro-Gaddafi forces were gathering arms and equipment in preparation for a long war. Elsewhere, the United Nations gave Libya's seat to the transitional authorities on Friday, bringing the recognition of Gaddafi's government to a formal end. Clashes are taking place between security forces and protesters in Syria, mainly in the outskirts of Hama, Homs and Daraa. Pro-democracy activists say at least 44 people have been killed by security forces after Friday prayers, according to the Syrian Revolutionary General Commission and the local coordination committees. Scores of demonstrators are reported to have gathered in important cities and towns demanding an end to Bashar al-Assad's rule. According to the local coordination committee, an opposition group, 761 people have been killed in Homs, 594 in Daraa, and 350 in Hamas since the beginning of the uprising. Elsewhere, about 140 figures, including exiled opponents and 70 dissidents inside Syria, were chosen as members of the new Syrian National Council, concluding a 4-day meeting in the Turkish city of Istanbul. Soldiers opened fire near an anti-government protest camp in Yemen's capital overnight and wounded 8 protesters, medics said on Saturday, after weeks of relative calm in the area. Troops loyal to the president said they shot in the air to stop demonstrators from trying to expand the area of the protest, where thousands have camped out for nearly 8 months to demand an end to President Ali Abdullah Saleh's 33-year rule. Separately in Hasaba, a northern district of Sana'a, residents heard artillery fire as clashes between pro-opposition tribesmen and government security forces broke out for the second time in 3 days, but no casualties were reported. This comes as Saleh is being treated in Saudi Arabia for injuries he suffered in a June bomb attack, but has clung to power and vowed to return to Yemen. At least 3 people have died and 56 more injured when a vintage aircraft crashed into the ground at an air show in the United States state of Nevada, a spokesman said. Hours after the crash, Mike Oughton, president and CEO of Renault Air Races, told a news conference that mechanical problems might have caused a World War II-era fighter plane to plunge into the grandstands at a Nevada air show on Friday. Stephanie Cruz, a spokeswoman for the Regional Emergency Medical Service Authority, said 25 people were critically injured and another 25 people were seriously hurt in the crash. Killed in the crash was the pilot, 74-year-old movie stunt pilot Jimmy Leward, and at least 2 others. The aircraft was a World War II P-51 Mustang fighter jet called the Galloping Ghost. In the United States, President Barack Obama said on Saturday that Americans need to be ready to pay their fair share to narrow the United States deficit, previewing his proposals to Congress that are expected to include more taxes on the rich. In his weekly radio and video address, the Democrat said his $447 billion jobs plan that features tax breaks for workers and small businesses, plus funds for public works projects and schools, will not aid to the deficit but will be paid for. Obama has repeatedly argued for the wealthiest Americans to face higher taxes with fewer loopholes and exceptions as part of the effort to ensure the United States debt load remains in control. He's likely to float more taxes on the rich as well as companies getting some tax breaks in his Monday suggestions to a congressional super committee tasked with finding at least $1.2 trillion in budget savings over 10 years. Republicans see higher taxes on the wealthy as a problem for jobs, given that entrepreneurs and companies would be strongly affected. And that is all for now. Thanks for staying with us.